Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
The other way around? Okay. Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Oh, it works too well. Continuing from this morning or midday, where we read chapter 2, that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu upon returning to Navadvip after receiving mantra diksha from Ishwara Puri, what that experience was like for the residents of Navadvip and the various ways that he exhibited himself before everybody. Instead of being the wrangling, debating, challenging, feisty student, he's now a gentle Vaishnav, serving the devotees, carrying their flower baskets and doing all kinds of humble things. And helping Srivas Pandit get over the fear that had arisen to an intentional rumor that the king heard about his Sankirtan, and the king sent 2 boatloads of soldiers to come and smash the residents of Navadvip. So hearing that rumor, Nimai Pandit decided to start to reveal his divinity, and he did it in a very, very fascinating way, including having the niece of Srivas chant in ecstasy and cry in ecstasy, and did it in such a way, declaring his divinity, that he need not be afraid. And Srivas offered prayers describing the beautiful mood of Mahaprabhu and his divinity this way, that way, the other way. And he parted with everybody, his servants and his brothers and the wives of his brothers, and everyone getting the fullness of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. That's where we ended. And now we're going to hear at least a little section where it doesn't give details of where else besides the house of Murari Gupta, but Lord Chaitanya did something similar. Again, the devotees are feeling some fear, and the fear is the reprimand that may come from the envious people, and involving the Kazi, and involving the king above the Kazi, and everything. The fear of retribution. So the title of the chapter, the part we're going to read, is The Lord Manifests His Varaha Form in the House of Murari. And it's not so long, it's 50-something pages. All glories to Vishvambar, the beloved Lord of all. All glories to the Lord of Nityananda and Gadadhar. All glories to the Lord, who is controlled by his devotees, headed by Advaita. O Lord, please award me your devotional service and deliver this humble servant. In this way, Sri Gaurasundar floated in the ocean of devotional happiness in the company of his associates. All the Lord's servants were like his very life. He cried while holding their necks and chanting the name of Krishna. On seeing the Lord's love, all the devotees surrounding the Lord cried. By the sight of his love, even dry wood and stone melted. What to speak of his servants? All the devotees left aside their wealth, children, household, and engaged day and night in kirtan with the Lord. Then a long verse. Gaura Chandra became filled with devotion to Krishna. Whenever the Lord heard any topic about Krishna, he was immediately influenced by that. When the Lord cried for 6 hours in the mood of a servant, it appeared that the Ganges was flowing from his eyes. When he laughed for 3 hours. When he lost consciousness, he would not breathe for 3 hours. Sometimes he would proudly manifest his opulence, laugh and say, I am he, where is that old Nada who brought me here? I will distribute the sweet nectar of devotional service to each and every house. At that time, he would cry and say, Oh Krishna, oh my dear. Then he would tie his legs with his hair. Sometimes he would recite verses in the mood of Akrura and offer obeisances by falling like a rod to the ground. While fully absorbed in the mood of Akrura, Mahaprabhu lost all external consciousness and said, O Nanda, let us go to Mathura with Balaram and Krishna to see the royal festival of the bow sacrifice. When the Vaishnavas saw the Lord speaking in these various moods, they floated in waves of ecstasy. One day, when the Lord heard a verse glorifying Varaha, he roared loudly and went to the house of Murari. The Lord was greatly affectionate to Murari, just as Lord Ramachandra was affectionate to Hanuman. As Sri Sachinandana entered the house of Murari, Murari immediately offered him obeisances. As the Lord entered the house of Murari, he called out, Shukra! Shukra! The astounded Murari looked all around him. Vishwambar entered the Vishnu temple, where he saw a beautiful water pot with a spout. The Lord immediately assumed the form of Varaha, and by his own sweet will, he picked up the water pot with his teeth. The sacrificial boar grunted and manifested 4 hooves. Then the Lord said, Murari, offer prayers to me. Seeing this unprecedented sight, Murari became stunned. He was unable to find any words to speak. The Lord said, Speak up! Do not be afraid. All these days you did not know that I am here. Murari trembled and humbly spoke, O Lord, only you know your glories. Lord Ananta, who holds unlimited universes on one of his hoods, constantly glorifies you with his 1,000 mouths. Yet he himself admits that he has not reached the end. Therefore, who else is capable of glorifying you? Even the Vedas, whose injunctions are followed by all, are unable to know you in full, O Lord. The unlimited universes that we see or hear about are all absorbed within the pores of your hairs. You are always full of bliss in whatever you do, and so how can the Vedas know your activities? Therefore, only you know yourself. Others can know you only if you reveal yourself to them. What qualification do I have to offer you prayers? Speaking in this way, Murari Gupta cried, and offered obeisances to the Lord. Lord Varaha was pleased with the statements of Marigupta. Displaying anger towards the Vedas, he spoke as follows. The Vedas mock me by accusing me of having no hands, legs, mouth, or eyes. There is one wretch in Kashi named Prakashananda who cuts my body to pieces while teaching the Vedas. He explains the Vedas but does not accept my form. His entire body is afflicted with leprosy, yet he does not come to his senses. My body is the personification of all sacrifices and therefore so pure that personalities such as Brahma and Shiva glorify its characteristics. By the touch of my body, purity is sanctified. So how can that wretch say that my body is false? Oh, Murari Gupta, listen. As I tell you the essence of all doctrines, I will disclose the confidential purport of the Vedas to you. I am the divine sacrificial boar, the essence of all the Vedas. It was I who previously delivered the earth. I have incarnated to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. I will destroy the miscreants for the sake of my devotees. I cannot tolerate the oppression of my devotees. I kill the oppressor, even if he is my own son. I cut down my own son for the sake of my servant. I'm not telling a lie. Oh, Gupta, hear attentively. When I was delivering the earth, she became pregnant by my touch. I begot a powerful son named Naraka, and I personally instructed him on religious principles. My son became a great king, and he properly maintained the demigods, the twice-born, the gurus, and the devotees. By providence, he fell into bad association with Bana and began to take pleasure in oppressing the devotees. I cannot tolerate the oppression of my servants, so I cut my own son to protect my servants. You have served me birth after birth, therefore I have disclosed these truths to you. On hearing the Lord's words, Murari Gupta became overwhelmed and began to cry. All glories to Gaurachandra in the association of Murari. All glories to Varaha, the Lord of sacrifice and the protector of his devotees. And then the next sentence is important. In this way, the Lord revealed himself to all of his servants at each of their houses, meaning this is a sample of a grain of rice in a pot. So, because they were all feeling some fear. When the servants recognized their Lord, their hearts became filled with bliss. They no longer feared the atheists, and they freely and loudly chanted the names of Krishna at all public places. In the company of the Lord, all the devotees happily engaged day and night in chanting the holy names. So what happens in the rest of this chapter 3 is he's feeling everything is nice except Nitya's not here, and so Nityananda comes. And there's the meeting of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda. And that's a very wonderful event. And after his presence is revealed, there's many exchanges between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Then some days pass, and the conclusion of this volume, chapter 6, the Lord's meeting with Advaita Acharya, and his display of his six-armed form. So a summary of what's in this chapter, short paragraph. This chapter describes how Sri Mahaprabhu sent Ramai to explain the truth of his identity and the news of the arrival in Navadvip of Advaita, meaning from Shantipur, and his wife, with various ingredients for worship, and staying at the house of Nandan Acharya in order to test Mahaprabhu. The meeting between Advaita and Mahaprabhu, who is the super soul and knower of Advaita Acharya's secret pastimes. Advaita Acharya's darshan of the Lord's opulence, and the topics of Mahaprabhu disclosing the truth about himself to Advaita. So they just a Vyasa Puja ceremony of Lord Chaitanya. Maybe you remember seeing that in that series of illustrations. And now comes Ramai being sent to invite Advaita, because he's received the worship of the devotees. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Chandra, who is the free independent Supreme Personality of Godhead and the abode of transcendental pastimes. All glories to his eternally pure activities. Sri Gaura Sundara is the controller of all other controllers, the Lord of the universe, and the embodiment of transcendental knowledge. Glories to his devotees, and all glories to the dancing of his beloved associates. All glories to Gaurachandra, the life and stood Advaita's resolution. Knowing about the arrival of Advaita Acharya, the Lord went to the house of Srivas Pandit. Almost all of Lord Chaitanya's devotees gathered there by the will of the Lord. Everyone could understand that the Lord was absorbed in ecstasy. They all became anxious and stood there silently. Then Lord Tridasha Rai, the phrase Tridasha Rai refers to 3 more than 3 times 10, or 33, which consists of the 12 Adityas, the 11 Rudras, the 8 Vasus, the 2 Ashwini Kumaras. These 33 are principal demigods and are the 33 referred to here. Raya means king, the supreme controller, the object of worship, and the Lord of the 330 million demigods. But it just says 33, Tridashera Rai. Tell Lord Tridasha Rai, then Lord Tridasha Rai roared loudly and sat on the throne of Vishnu. The Lord repeatedly declared, Nada is coming. Nada is coming. Nada wants to see my opulences. Nada refers to Advaita Acharya. Elsewhere in this, Bhakti Siddhanta explains what was the meaning behind Nada. I can't remember the meaning. Does anybody remember the meaning? But it refers to Advaita Acharya. Nityananda knows the Lord's desires. With this understanding, he held an umbrella over the Lord's head. Understanding the situation, Gadadhar offered camphor and betel nuts. Everyone present served the Lord according to his own favorable mood. Some offered prayers. Some offered various services. At that time, Ramai arrived there. Before Ramai could speak anything, the Lord said to him, Nada has sent you to test me. The Lord rolled his head and said, Nada is coming. He knows me well, yet he always tests me. I know Nada is hiding at the house of Nandanacharya, and he has sent you to test me. Go quickly and bring him here. I am gladly saying this with my own mouth. Ramai Pandit again happily went and explained to Advaita everything that the Lord had said. On hearing him, Advaita Acharya floated in waves of ecstasy, having fulfilled his purpose, showing he's omniscient. He immediately went to the Lord. Advaita Acharya and his wife offered obeisances from a distance and recited prayers as they approached the Lord. They came before the Lord, surrendered at his fearless lotus feet, and saw his matchless beauty, which enchants the entire universe. The Lord's enchanting beauty defeated that of millions of cupids, and his effulgent body resembled molten gold. His pleasing face defeated the beauty of millions of moons. He always bestowed mercy on Advaita Acharya. His two arms, decorated with various ornaments and jewels, resembled two golden pillars. His broad chest was decorated with the mark of Srivatsa and the Kanstuba gem. He wore earrings shaped like sharks and the Vaijayanti garland. His unlimited effulgence defeated that of millions of suns. Rama, the goddess of fortune, sat at his lotus feet, and Ananta held an umbrella over his head. No one could distinguish which were his toenails and which were the jewels. Standing in a threefold bending pose, he smiled as he played a flute. Advaita saw the Lord, his associates, and his ornaments as full of effulgence. He saw personalities with 4 heads, 5 heads, 6 heads, offering obeisances to the Lord. And he saw personalities like Narada and Shukadev offering prayers with awe and reverence. Here's who the different heads are. This is short purport. 4-headed Brahma, 5-headed Shiva, 6-headed Kartikeya fell flat offering obeisance to the Lord. He saw a beautiful woman resembling Ganga sitting on a shark and offering obeisances to the Lord. She had a chariot drawn by a shark. Then he saw the 1,000-headed Anantashesha offering prayers to the Lord as the effulgent demigods watched on all sides. Advaita Acharya turned his head and saw thousands of demigods chanting the name of Krishna at the feet of the Lord. Those demigods that are meditated upon, those demigods that are meditated on at the time of worship were all seen surrounding the lotus feet of the Lord. On seeing this opulence, because that's what he wanted, Advaita got up from his prostrated position and was struck with wonder. He saw great serpents with hundreds of hoods raise their arms while offering prayers to the Lord. He saw the entire sky filled with divine chariots. The airways were congested by elephants, swans, and horses. Those are the carriers of the demigods. Millions and millions of serpents' wives were offering prayers to the Lord while chanting the name of Krishna with tears in their eyes. There was no vacant space left on the earth or in the sky. He saw many great rishis offering obeisances in one corner. Seeing that opulence, both husband and wife were awestruck. They became speechless. The most merciful Vishvambar looked at Advaita and spoke as follows. I have descended to fulfill your vow. for you have profusely worshipped me. I was sleeping in the ocean of milk, but your loud cries broke my sleep. You could not tolerate the suffering of living entities, so you have brought me to deliver them. All my associates that you saw surrounding me have already taken birth because of you. By your mercy, Vaishnavas that even personalities like Brahma desire to see will now be seen by everyone. On hearing the Lord's words, Advaita and his wife raised their arms and began to cry. Today my life has become successful. Today all my desires have been fulfilled. Today my life and activities have become successful, for I have seen your lotus feet. The four Vedas only describe your glories, but cannot directly see you. Yet you have appeared because of me. I have no power outside of your causeless mercy. Who can deliver the living entities other than you? While speaking in this way, Advaita Acharya floated in the ecstasy of love of God. The Lord then said, now arrange for my worship. Just what Advaita Acharya wanted to do. On receiving the Lord's order, he happily worshipped the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya with full attention. He first washed the lotus feet of the Lord with fragrant water and then smeared them with sandalwood paste. He dipped tulsi manjaris in the sandalwood paste and placed them and the ingredients of arghya on the Lord's lotus feet. He worshipped the Lord with 5 ingredients like sandalwood paste, flowers, incense, and ghee. As he worshipped the Lord, tears of love flowed from his eyes. He'd offered a lamp with 5 ghee wicks and again offered prayers. Finally, he loudly chanted, Jaya, Jaya. After worshipping the Lord's feet with 16 ingredients, he offered a flower garland, cloth, and ornaments. And in Bhaktisiddhanta's own style, he lists out what the 16 items are. It gives the Sanskrit and the English for each of the 16. Advaita Acharya worshipped the Lord according to the Pancharatrika regulations of the scriptures. He offered his obeisances while reciting the following verse. Let me offer Namo Brahmanya Devaya. Go Brahman Hitaya Cha. We read that this morning from Vishnu Purana. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, who is the worshipable deity for all Brahminical men, who is the well-wisher of the cows and brahmanas, and who is always benefiting the whole world. I offer my repeated obeisances to the personality Godhead known as Krishna and Govinda, Jagatitaya Krishnaya Govindaya. Namo Namaha. First, he offered obeisances by reciting this verse, and then he offered prayers in accordance with various scriptures. All glories to Vishvambar, the life and soul of all living entities. All glories to Gaurachandra, the ocean of mercy. All glories to he who makes the words of his devotees come true. All glories to Mahaprabhu, the supreme fountainhead of all incarnations. All glories to the Lord, who is enchanted by the beauty of the goddess of fortune, goddess Lakshmi, the daughter of the ocean. All glories to he who is decorated with the mark of Srivatsa and the Kaustubha gem. I came across some reference. I can't remember where I came across it. The Lakshmi that came from the ocean is not the original Lakshmi, goddess of fortune. She's an expansion of that original goddess of fortune. Then there's another Lakshmi that's the Lakshmi that gives material benedictions to people. That's not the one that arose from the ocean. Somewhere there's this distinction, different expansions. Okay. There's Bhagavatam 8:8:8. Then there appeared the goddess of fortune Rama, who is absolutely dedicated to being enjoyed by the Supreme Personality Godhead. She appeared like electricity, surpassing the lightning that might illuminate a marble mountain. All glories to He who inaugurated the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. All glories to He who enjoyed the pastime of accepting His own devotion. All glories to Mahaprabhu who lies on the bed of Ananta. All glories to He who is the shelter of all living entities. You are Vishnu. You are Krishna. You are Narayana. You are Matsya. You are Kurma. You are eternal, O Lord. You are Varaha, and you are Vamana. You protect the Vedas in every millennium. You are the destroyer of the demoniac dynasties. You are the life of Sita, the bestower of boons to Guha, and the deliverer of Ahalya. As Nrsingadev, you incarnated to deliver Prahlad and kill Hiranyakashipu. You are the crest jewel of all demigods and the best of the Brahmanas. You accept various foodstuffs at Nilachala. The four Vedas wander from place to place in search of you. You have hidden from them by coming here. You are most expert in concealing yourself, but your devotees recognize and expose you. You have incarnated to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. There is nothing in the unlimited universes other than you. Gauri and Shankara are overwhelmed by the nectar of your lotus feet. Rama, the goddess of fortune, engages in the service of these lotus feet with full attention. The 1,000-headed Anantashesh sings the glories of these lotus feet. Lord Brahma always worships these lotus feet, and the Shrutis, Smritis, and Puranas glorify these lotus feet. These lotus feet covered the entire Satyaloka, and the head of Bali Maharaj became glorified by the touch of these lotus feet. The forceful flow of the Ganges that is sustained by Lord Shiva emanates from these lotus feet. The intelligence of Advaita surpasses that of millions of Brahaspatis. He knows perfectly well the glorious position of Lord Chaitanya. While glorifying the Lord's lotus feet, he floated in tears of ecstasy. He then fell flat at the lotus feet of the Lord. She, Gauranga Rai, the supersoul of all living entities, placed his lotus feet on the head of Advaita. As soon as he placed his feet on the head of Advaita, the tumultuous sound of Jaya, Jaya was heard. On seeing this wonderful sight, everyone was overwhelmed and began chanting, Hari, Hari. Some of them rolled on the ground, and some of them clapped their hands. Others cried loudly while embracing each other. The heart's desire of Advaita and his wife were fulfilled, for they attained the lotus feet of the Lord as they had previously desired. Lord Vishvambar instructed Advaita, O Nada, dance in my kirtan. Being instructed by the Lord, Advaita Gosai began to dance in various devotional moods. As the most enchanting sound of kirtan arose, Advaita Prabhu danced before Lord Gaurachandra. One moment, he danced madly. At another moment, he danced sweetly. One moment, he held many straws between his teeth. One moment, he whirled around. One moment, he stood up. And another moment, he rolled on the ground. One moment, he sighed deeply. And another moment, he fell unconscious. According to the mood of the kirtan, he happily danced in various ways. At the end, he remained in the mood of a servant. No one could understand his inconceivable glories. When he rushed up to the Lord and saw Nityananda, he smiled. While raising his eyebrows, he smiled and said, "Oh, Nitai, it is good that you have come. For so long I could not see you. Today I will bind you. Then where will you go?" Sometimes he addressed him as Prabhu, and sometimes he called him a drunkard. Nityananda Rai smiled at the behavior of Advaita. They are actually one, but for the sake of Krishna's pastimes, they have become two. I have already described how Nityananda joyfully serves Lord Chaitanya in various forms. In some forms, he advises the Lord. In some forms, he meditates on the Lord. In some forms, he becomes the Lord's umbrella or bed. And in some forms, he sings the glories of the Lord. I mean, Vrindavan Das is in another realm of authors. All the most fortunate souls know very well that there is no difference between Nityananda and Advaita. All their pastimes of quarreling together that you see are the inconceivable sporting of the Lord. The exchange of love between the two resembles the exchange of love between Ananta and Shankara, for they are both dear. If one who does not understand their quarrels takes the side of one and respects him while criticizing the other, he is vanquished. He is vanquished. As all the Vaishnavas watched Advaita's dancing, they were overwhelmed and merged in an ocean of bliss. When the Lord ordered Advaita to stop chanting, he immediately stopped, respecting the Lord's order. The Lord gave his own garland to Advaita and then smiled and said, "Ask for a benediction. Ask for a benediction." Advaita did not reply. As Vishwambhara repeatedly said, "Ask, ask." Advaita then said, "What more can I ask for? Whenever I desired, I have already received. I have danced before you. Now all of my desires have been fulfilled. O Lord, what can I ask for? What more is there? I have already seen your incarnation. What should I ask for? You know very well what I lack. What is there that you do not see with your transcendental vision?" Lord Vishwambhara rolled his head and said, "I have manifested before you. I will preach the chanting of the holy names from house to house, so that the entire universe will dance as they sing my glories. I will distribute that devotional service for which personalities headed by Brahma, Shiva, and Narada undergo austerities. I assure you of this." Advaita replied, "If you will distribute devotional service, then also give it to the less intelligent persons, including the women and Shudras. Let all the sinful people who are proud of their education, wealth, high birth, and austerities, and those who place obstacles in the path of your devotees and your devotional service, burn to death, and let all others, including the dog-eaters, dance while singing your holy names and qualities. Hearing Advaita's statement, the Lord roared loudly and said, "Whatever you say will be fulfilled." The entire world is a witness of these words, for his mercy was distributed to the foolish and fallen. Even the dog eaters are dancing and singing the glories of the Lord, while the Bhattas, Mishras, and Chakravartis are engaged in criticism. Someone who studies the scriptures and shaves his head may nevertheless lose his intelligence, for one who blasphemes Nityananda is certainly doomed. The entire world received love of God by the mercy of Advaita Prabhu. All these pastimes are described in the Madhya Kanda. Only Saraswati, the mother of the universe, knows everything about the loving conversations between Lord Chaitanya and Advaita Prabhu. That goddess manifests on everyone's tongue and unlimitedly sings the glories of Lord Chaitanya. I offer my respectful obeisances at the feet of all the Vaishnavas so that they may not consider my offenses. Advaita Gosai and his wife became jubilant, and on the order of the Lord, they remained there. Accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. Another kind of literature. Very special, very different. There's a comment about, I've been speaking a little bit about the distinction between Krishnadas Kaviraj's method and approach and Vrindavan Das Thakur's method and approach. I mean, he's a Brahmana by birth. They're both obviously learned, as we mentioned. He's aware of verses from Vishnu Purana and so forth and so on, and other scriptures. But he's not making reference to all those different scriptures. When Krishnadas Kaviraj was requested by the Vaishnavas to compile Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a lot said about why he put it in Bengali. Because he was highly proficient in Sanskrit, and he could have been in Sanskrit. Other of his writings in Sanskrit indicate his skill, his knowledge, the power that he had in Sanskrit composition. And the others of the Goswamis, who were his predecessors, their literatures were in Sanskrit. And the composition was going to be kind of this encyclopedia or a very comprehensive picture of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's teachings. You know, the life and the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And through the Goswamis, that's the writings in Sanskrit. But he wrote it in Bengali. I remember asking somebody that's, you know, a Brahmin-born Bengali person to translate some section for me. And they looked at it and said, it's too high. I mean, I don't know the difference between high and low, but that was their comment. I just accepted it. It's almost like Sanskrit, but it was purposely made accessible to people in general. Because already at his time, already there were deviations from Lord Chaitanya's teachings, what to speak of as time passed. And there were different schools in different areas that emphasized this and emphasized that and understood this and understood that, and it had the effect, being in Bengali, that it brought everybody. It was conclusive. It brought the disparate elements to a position of unity, recognizing in particular the prominence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because some persons didn't understand that. They had a different understanding. They had an understanding of Nityananda, but not of Lord Chaitanya, an understanding of Advaita, but not Chaitanya, and so forth and so on. Different, sections of the teachings that they heard, smidgens here and smidgens there, and didn't have a complete picture. And besides what was actually said as opposed to what wasn't actually said, what was its meaning? And he packaged it all together with the teachings that Lord Chaitanya had given to Rupa and Sanatan and others. And he had an immense command of writings of previous acharyas, and great personalities, and so forth. Yet, as profound of an author as he was, he's honoring Vrindavan Das Thakur. I mean, it's natural. It's natural. Because his being the first biographer, and obviously he understands who is Lord Chaitanya, and has intimate first-hand knowledge. I mean, not first-hand because he wasn't alive when these pastimes took place. He was just a little boy, wasn't matured to understand first-hand experience, but he grew up with it. And the merit of our devotee families, just like you. Yeah, I know your name. I'm just getting your attention because you're having a fantastic time there drawing whatever it is that you're drawing. But somehow I have the experience that not only by drawing you become a good artist, the hearing it goes in. For example, do you remember the name by which Lord Chaitanya addressed Advaita Acharya? It starts with an N. Were you paying attention? His eyes are rolling around. Nada. Remember that one? Oh, yeah. So by hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing, it just becomes part of your life. You're a special soul. Somehow, here you are. And, just some appreciation. Some of you here know Ajit Gandhi. I hadn't seen Ajit Gandhi for 12 years, maybe more. And he looks just like Ajit Gandhi. He just some people, when they get older, they look different. He looks the same. It's just a little older version, but he's Ajit Gandhi. And a very humble mood, incredibly humble mood. And we had some nice exchange. I wrote him a letter today, just thanking him for coming. Just, it was so nice to see him. And we looked towards the altar. I explained, little what's coming. And as we were looking towards the altar, there was the kirtan, and there was all these kirtaniers huddled around doing kirtan together. And I remember when his children were just little, and I remarked Wakunda when he was just little, just remember, and then Ajit commented, and he's become a fine Vaishnav, and by that character and quality that his child now receiving the exposure to Nam Sankirtan and everything, um, it's some special Shakti, some special mercy, and then the depth of Krishna Bhakti can be propagated. And many people don't have Krishna Bhakti, or they have some semblance of Krishna Bhakti, or something else in their system from how they grew up. And the Bhakti spreads. And that's what Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is. The propagation of the chanting of the holy name. Gaur Purnima is a special festival. And glorifying, as we're attempting to do, just reading, glorifying Lord Chaitanya and his associates, and those that are at the feet of Lord Chaitanya and at the feet of his associates. Just that those messages are. I mean, you're so fortunate. You're growing up with this. You may not realize it. Hopefully, later you'll realize it. How fortunate you are. And it's a great opportunity for those who have grown up to give to others. Anyway, it's going on, but it's a great opportunity of service. To be example-setting individuals and filled with devotion and receiving and giving. Okay, so let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Some reflections. The one I was thinking about is the desire. These pastimes, the desire is the main thing. The second I thought was, even though he's a son of the Lord, because of the bad association, the Varaha, the pastime of Varaha. So the association is also very important for all of us.
Yeah.
And then even though we have heard about the unmanifested form, but the manifested form of the deities, at least for us, sometimes I feel when I do arati and all, are you sure? Are you real? That kind of thought comes. It's difficult to understand, even in spite of hearing many pastimes and today's pastimes. Are you sure? Are you Krishna? Are you real?
Uh-huh.
So how do I digest that?
Well, the question itself is not problematic. It can be not a detriment. It can be an asset. Depends on the mood of the question itself. But the necessity of not just mechanically performing devotional service, but devotionally performing devotional service. So by reading Prabhupada's books, you will get a deeper understanding about why that worship of deity is important, why, how did it come to be? Not, not only for you in your home and in your life, but within the scriptures, what's its place? And then once the place is identified from the teachings, then you can adjust according to that mood, because then you make the more quick progress. And it's there. You just read carefully, and the more carefully you read, it's all there. So how do you handle that question? You go to Prabhupada's books and you chant the holy name more attentively, because otherwise you could ask the same question about the holy name, and for that matter, the whole of the bhakti process. Is it real? The opportunity is there within the activity itself, but properly attended to with proper guidance. So the attention and the intention are both important. By hearing about these great personalities and their exchanges with their deities, etc., it gives strength. However, it's not just storybook stories. You associate with devotees that are sincerely engaged in deity worship, and in confidential ways, they may disclose things to you that have been disclosed to them about the personal reciprocation between them and their deities. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking about three. I'll mention one. There's a particular devotee somewhere, and they worship Radha Krishna in their home at the same standard as that Radha Krishna worshipped in a temple. And it's mainly done by the wife, and she's, her quality is very soft, very quiet, very not outspoken. And by getting to know them, something was disclosed. I can't remember if it was she who disclosed it, and then her husband was astonished, or her husband disclosed it and she was astonished. But the deities did something where every day she puts the paraphernalia such and such place, and it wasn't there. And they searched and searched, and it wasn't where it was supposed to be, because the deity had it. I can't remember the detail. It just was like, it was a little sign to indicate something. There's many other examples. So it's not just storybookish, where some reciprocation is there. So what about me? What about you? What about our... Then somebody wants, maybe some high experience for confirmation. But then there has to be that comes the eligibility. It's from that service. It's like Lord Chaitanya said to his associates, because you've served me life after life after life, I'm disclosing these things to you. So then what's your eligibility? And having, to ask the question, are you real, or is this real? It's an impetus. It can be, instead of a negative thing, an impetus. Let me go beyond the mechanical and into the transcendental realm. But I have to have an eligibility. So part of that eligibility is our eagerness, and take it, a step further, and becomes greed. So it's not like this particular person whose name I'm not mentioning, they had this greed for their deity to show them they're actually Krishna. They just had a service mood, and so the deity showed in a little way, but it was really clear. to both husband and wife. It's not wasting their time. They're not worshiping stone or metal or wood.
I had some experiences, but still sometimes. The last week, I I normally meditate on what kind of dress, which color should I dress them, the Radha Madhav. Last week, I just woke up by 3:30, and something was telling me, go ahead with the white and pink.
Okay.
And then I went to the DT's room. I just opened it. I just saw only that dress. I just took it and then dressed them. Sometimes I feel, wow, I feel that that's qualification eligibility. We don't have it, but how does that come? That's kind of.
Well, you have to qualify yourself, and when that the regulative becomes spontaneous, that's a big gap, a big transition, but it's meant. I just sent out the little. I think I can't even remember where I received this from. It might have been Giriraj Maharaj's book because I was so absorbed in reading the book. But someone said, it was a little quote, someone said to Prabhupada, I've never met anyone that has qualities like you have. So many and so profuse, like that. Those weren't the exact words, but like that. Prabhupada was silent. And his statement was, it's innate. And one just has to remove the words that he used, one has to remove the upadhis. And once you get on the other side of the upadhis, then that which is innate comes out. It's already there. And it's not anything different than what we've heard about bhakti itself, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajikabondoy, etc. But there's coverings, and there's coverings of those coverings, and there's coverings of those coverings of those coverings. And we're caught up in the distraction of those coverings, although we're doing bhakti. And some little sign, there has to be something, otherwise how can we carry on? But to get on the other side of all those coverings, there has to be an eagerness. It has to come to the spontaneous stage. Kabe habe bolo se din amar, right? When will that day come? In Prabhupada's talks on Nectar of Devotion series that started in Vrindavan and then continued in Bombay, he gives this very simple example, really simple example. He didn't know the term, but it was the term of jump-starting a car. He said sometimes the car won't start. Vroom, vroom, vroom. It's not starting. So people get out of the car and push the car, and then vroom, vroom, vroom. But the pushing is only to get it to the point where then it has to connect with its own energy, and then it can continue to move. And Prabhupada was making that comparison, not just sadhana bhakti, but even the lesser stages of so many other yoga systems, to come to the spontaneous platform. It's all, the purpose of it is to get to the spontaneous platform, so the engine, the car can move under its own energy. So the other the regulative stages of bhakti are to help us to get to the spontaneous stage of bhakti. And however long it takes, that's how long it takes. And having an eagerness accelerates. And getting that eagerness even stronger and stronger. Not because it can be sad, I'm not there yet, sad, or whatever else kind of, I'm a loser, or there's other people and I'm a little person, and something like that. The comparison thing that goes on sometimes. We're meant to come to the spontaneous stage and be with those who are sincere and wholesome, and really at least trying to become focused like that, and be that for others, and be in the association of those who are like that. And that then there's the internal effort. What I'm speaking now is the topic that I've chosen to speak about for the Memorial Day weekend. And it's not going to be in Gita Nagari. It's going to be in Potomac. But that's the topic. Manashiksha by Raghunath Das Goswami, the internal cultivation to prepare one for eligibility for spontaneous devotion. You have something? You had the microphone. Oh, okay. Behind you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm sorry, I missed this session of reading, but I had a question from earlier today's
Fine.
session.
Fine.
Just hearing about Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy. I mean, the ecstasy that we were hearing about sounded like the same type of ecstasy that he's experiencing at the end of his.
I was thinking the same thing as I was reading it.
Yeah. So I was wondering. I mean, I had a second thought, but I guess my primary question is, I was just wondering, because we always hear that the ecstasy that he's experiencing at the end of his pastimes are the highest.
They were.
Yeah. So I was wondering if there's some difference between like the nature, what he's experiencing at this point in time versus at the end.
There's a very nice section in Chaitanya Charitamrita where there's a transition. The transition comes when Jagatananda Pandit is visiting in Navadvip, and he takes permission from Advaita to go back, and Advaita gives him this funny message that he laughs about. Tell that madman that we've all become mad, and there's no interest in rice in the market anymore. And so it was a signal that you've now fulfilled the purpose of my asking you to come. Now you can do the other purpose. So that's from that point, when he came back, that Lord Chaitanya, Jagat doesn't say that Jagatananda understood. It sounds like Jagatananda didn't understand, because it was a coded message kind of thing. From that point is when the ecstasies went into their outer limits. So consistently it's said day by day, and it's already like madness. So day by day. And sometimes he would behave as if everything's quite okay, but sometimes, because when he would give teachings, for example. But the ecstasies at the stage during those final years, it was like nonstop and super extreme, never before seen in the world, by physical transformations of his body, like a pumpkin, and like so many incredible things. Your specific question is how are they this compared to that? That's your question. It's just no boundaries. The external mission of propagating the Nam Sankirtan, that's fulfilled, and it'll go on in a spontaneous way on its own. So now comes his own internal. So that check was there no longer. Now it's just spontaneous. From his internal as well as the external exhibition of that wasn't checked by anything. Something else? Or
Yeah, kind of on a different note, just hearing about Lord Chaitanya's ecstasies and just, when we hear about Lord Krishna's pastimes, kind of the effect that has been coming to me over time, which is probably not the ideal effect, has been I feel like
It's too high.
embarrassed to I feel like I can barely appreciate this. How can I share this with someone who's not a devotee? That, like, how can they appreciate this if I'm barely able to appreciate something like this? But it's not. So then the effect that comes to me is, let me just turn to more internal and like just come to a small group of devotees, go to someone who is appreciating this, but then it seems like that's counterintuitive to the propagation
Yeah,
of.
that's right. That's right.
So
I was just in Potomac before coming here, and I saw Gauravani, and Gauravani sent to me a link of something he was doing with Janavi. And I had to give a class at the same time, so he sent me the YouTube. I'll send you the YouTube link, and the answer to your question is there. Because these are two, like you, grew up in, Krishna consciousness with the way that they grew up with it. And Gauravani is something like 10 years older than Jahnavi, and he was kind of the pioneer in taking this outside. And the way that they speak, because they've got their audiences, their whatever, their fan base, his and hers in the same call, and they're speaking about Lord Chaitanya in terms that it's really sweet and very palatable, and there are people ready to hear it. Now, there may be persons like me, just a practicing Hare Krishna devotee listening, but they have all kinds of other people out there, and how they do it, which is what your question is. Bhakti-Dari, can you tilt this way, one way or the other, but you keep bobbing back and forth, and it's okay. Learn from the people that she said she learned from him. And now she's doing it in fantastic. Again, their style is different, but it's so compatible. Their exchange with one another. That's something that, like Kastuba and Raghunath, that there's a way of they can reach to audiences. It's not Lord Chaitanya, but it's Bhagavatam, and so there's language, the ways to make it relatable, and there's an eagerness to receive. Listen to their podcast and see how they do it. And then it's not like you have to do it as they do it, but you get an idea that this is something that works. Very effective. I know somebody that went to a gathering that Raghunath and Kastuba arranged in Colombia, that place that, Kali, right? So somebody I know brought their teenage son who doesn't like to chant japa, but he was really happy to go to that program, and now he's chanting japa. I mean, there's a way. Hearts can be touched that are not just a small group of people that know about Lord Chaitanya. It has to be toned down. But they were pretty, they're creative people, both of them. So they had lots of poetic expression, and Gauravani is like a completely from the heart person. When he speaks, it's like it moves the heart, because that's where he comes from. So that's in language that it's relatable. And they were talking real high stuff, but relatable. Anything else? If I forget your minding, I'll send you that link. It's short.
Guru Maharaj, a few questions come to mind. One, drawing a comparison or a parallel to Krishna's manifest pastimes on the earth. There were also times when Lord Krishna revealed his divinity to
Yeah.
the residents of Vrindavan. And yet they would get covered by Yogamaya
Yeah.
even after that,
Yes.
because it aided in the mood that Krishna wanted in Vrindavan. So in Lord Chaitanya's Leelas, he, at these different points, Mahaprakash Leela, he's revealing his divinity even though he appears as the Chanavatar. And is it also true that those associates then get covered by Yogamaya at different points, they forget, or is that something that stays consistent for them in their experience with Lord Chaitanya?
The answer to that question, I would want to defer to write me the question. I'll send it to Varsana Swami, who's like the guru for Gaura Leela. And he'll have an answer. Because the answer with Krishna Leela has come from our acharyas. They explain. And it's not so clear. One could easily say yes or no. Or, it's not, I haven't come in contact with any explanation. After he revealed to Murari Gupta, how did Murari Gupta's vision of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, did it go back to he's just, whatever it was? Or did it go to a whole other level more on reverence? Because now he understands his divinity. And same with Srivas and what he did. The only thing that we're hearing is the fear was driven away because they felt protected. And it was in steps. His defeating Keshava Kashmiri, like, wow, he's the best scholar. And even the scholars in Navadvip understood he's the best scholar. They felt protected. Their own integrity wasn't protected by Nimai Pandit. But that's not specific to your question. Your question is, did they forget because of Yogamaya? Even when he revealed, did they again become covered by Yogamaya and forget? So express it clearly and I'll see if I get an answer. Depends on his health and what's going on, both those two things. But generally he's really quick. Anything else? Yes.
Lord Chaitanya's revealing his divinity seems or is inconsistent with his desire to be a Chanavatar. So is it true that, this is only revealed during his pastimes to a few people and that, it does stay confidential, whereas it's put in writing later on
Yes.
for everyone?
We discussed that today during the earlier class. There are many times he forbade, don't tell anyone. And obviously they told somebody because there it is. But the way that it's explained, that I've understood, is as his pastimes matured, it became more clear. And when he departed, it became even more clear. That which was hidden became revealed. At least to some. And those who were knowledgeable about who he really was wrote it.
One final question, Guru Maharaj. In comparison to how long Krishna manifested his pastimes on the earth, Lord Chaitanya,
Short.
very short, not even a century, half a century. We understand that in Kali Yuga, the citizens can use as much help as they can get. And yet, Krishna chooses to appear on the earth for a very short period of time. I'm wondering if there's any significance to why in Kali Yuga particularly, it was so short.
That's a nice question. I think you'll have to ask Lord Chaitanya. You can put that in your second question and see if Arsana Maharaj has an answer. But, you know, he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. We have a hand up over here and a hand up back here. Anirudh, do you want to run the microphone? Oh, Anirudh, come on. Okay.
So, Maharaj, I just was wanting some clarification and in my understanding about young children when they come to Krishna consciousness. Is it because of the past they've come to finish the journey? Can we attribute something to that effect?
Oh, absolutely. It's
And,
right in Bhagavad Gita.
and given the opportunity that they're born in a family that is, can support them.
Making it conducive, yes. Yeah.
So what other attributes can we think of besides what we discussed?
Besides which?
Besides what the two couple that we touched upon today? What are the other reasons that they are fortunate to take to Krishna consciousness besides that?
For people who are not born in devotee families.
Yes, Maharaj.
So what's the adhikar for taking up bhakti?
Right.
The general principle is faith, and something that Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes about is unknown devotional service, agata sukriti, where someone may unknowingly be engaged in devotional service. Like, unknowingly they pass by a place where there's Sankirtan. Or unknowingly they receive Krishna Prasadam. Or, unknowingly they render some service to someone, who's a devotee. They're assisting a Vaishnav, unknowingly, knowing that not. So, unknowingly comes to the stage of knowingly, by unknowing. Agata Sukriti becomes Gata. I choose to engage in some service, knowing what it is. Those are some. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation. And just the association of a great personality can clear away lifetimes of entanglement and coverings. So that's another. When the Lord sends a great personality, he can transform people very quickly. You have something?
Maharaj, I've heard you speak about this, and I just saw it in article that was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that Nara is a corruption of the word Nara, which is the aggregate of all jivas.
There we go.
In Mahavishnu.
There we go. Thank you.
There's some other interesting comments by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in that he's written a whole article on this word Nara. Apparently.
He says what?
He says some people say it's because of it's a corruption of Neda, which means he's clean shaven. And then Bhaktivinoda goes on to explain that it's not the case.
Although Bhaktisiddhanta says it is the case. Okay, and where is that found? Do you remember?
It's one of his Sajjan Doshini articles. I
Okay.
can send you the link.
Okay.
There's the other question I had is, I was trying to study carefully the section in 11th canto where Mahaprabhu's appearance is being described by Karabhajana Muni.
Yes.
And there's a verse there which kind of caught me off guard a little bit, or not off guard, but it was interesting, which says that, my dear king, the inhabitants of Satyuga and other ages So this is right after he explains about Mahaprabhu's advent. The inhabitants of Satyuga and other ages eagerly desire to take birth in this age of Kali. Since this age, there will be many devotees of Supreme Lord Narayana. Then it says, these devotees will appear in various places, but will especially be numerous in South India. O Master of Men, in the age of Kali, those persons who drink the waters of the holy rivers of Dravida Desh, such as the Tamraparni, Kritamala, etc., will almost all be pure-hearted devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. So my speculative mind is thinking, maybe that explains why we have, large South Indian demographic in the US to join the movement. But it's interesting that Bhagavatam speaks in that way. In Sanskrit is specifically Dravida Desh. So I wanted to see if you had any comment on that.
I would like to read what the acharyas say, because that section is not translated by Prabhupada or purported by Prabhupada. It's purported by the followers of Prabhupada. And they selected things that moved them, and so they selected those things that moved them. But I have found by going through the 11th canto, at least as far as I've gotten, that there's many other very amazing things that they just passed over, which, how many pages can each purport of a verse be? They had to be selective. So to comment on it, it's I'd like to read what our acharyas have to say. There's a special, in short, there's a special piety that goes along with the strength of bhakti in South India. Not to say that there's no bhakti in Gujarat. Gujaratis would be really insulted. And Bengalis also. But there's something special about the bhakti, that the fastidiousness of that bhakti, and a lot of it, my impression at least, is the regulative side, the foundation that keeps bhakti supported, the regulative side. And that's there. But, it's observable. It's just a little sort or contemporary comment being washed away too. One of the last times I visited Tirupati, I flew into Chennai station, from the airport to the train station, and then the ride on the train, I was appalled at what Chennai has become. Boards as big as a house, like rows and rows and rows of selling, with women's bodies, selling liquor and and all kinds of stuff all over the place. And then in the train ride, it was the pious elders in one part of and then the kids partying in another part of the same train car. And with no sensibility of where they were going and what was up, and it just went on and on and on. So I mean, the fabric has